Good evening, dear listeners, and welcome to Fireside Reveries, Conversations with the Classics, where we gather around the warmth of imagination to explore the minds that have shaped the very fabric of storytelling. Tonight, we are graced with a guest whose words have transcended time, whose stories of love, ambition, tragedy, and comedy continue to inspire us all. He is the Bard of Avon, the playwright whose works have been performed on stages around the world for centuries, the one and only William Shakespeare. Master Shakespeare, it's an honor to have you here with us tonight. The world knows you through your unforgettable characters and timeless verses, but tonight we hope to learn more about the man behind the quill. Welcome to the show.
Good morrow, good listeners. My heartiest thanks for such a gracious welcome, and I must say, 'tis a most curious delight to find myself here, in this age of wonders, where words do fly not only on parchment but through the very air. 'Tis like something out of a dream, and yet I perceive the audience as keen and true as ever. It doth warm my heart. To stand here in thy modern world, far from the bustling streets of London, where once I penned my humble plays, is a joy beyond measure. I hope this night we shall discourse not only of my plays and the fanciful figures that stride through them, but also of those things that stir within the soul of any writer, the loves, the fears, the questions that ever plague or inspire. Pray, ask what thou wilt, and I shall endeavor to answer with the honesty that befits a son of Stratford, though I must confess, I am but a simple man, a servant of the Muses, and the tales I tell are oft wiser than I. But wherefore delay? Let us begin, for methinks there is much to say.
Master Shakespeare, thank you so much for joining us tonight by the fireside. It's truly an honor to have you here, and I know our listeners are eager to hear your thoughts, not just on your works, but on your life and times as well. Let's begin with something I think everyone is curious about. Your plays have touched on so many aspects of human nature, from love and ambition to jealousy and despair. What do you believe drove your fascination with such a wide range of emotions and experiences? Were these themes drawn from personal experiences or observations of the world around you?
Ah, thou dost strike to the very heart of the matter, and a question most fitting to begin our discourse. I oft reflect on this, and I do believe that the breadth of human emotion which doth color my plays springs from both the well of my own life and the vast sea of souls I did encounter. As a playwright, I was ever a keen observer of men and women in their daily lives, for there is no greater study of humanity than to watch its players upon the stage of the world. In the bustling streets of London, in the quiet corners of Stratford, or even in the royal courts, I saw much to kindle the imagination. I witnessed the frailty of ambition in the aspiring nobleman, the tender ache of love in the eyes of young lovers, and the biting sting of jealousy in those who feared its shadow. Yet, wouldst thou believe me if I said that much of this did also spring from my own heart? In truth, I am no stranger to love, nor to ambition, nor to despair. Though I was blessed to find great fortune in my writing, I have known the pangs of loss, the fleeting nature of fame, and the restless yearning that doth drive one to seek ever higher. These emotions, I think, are the lot of every man, be he high or low. For example, the love I did write of in Romeo and Juliet, that reckless, consuming passion, is not some distant fancy. In my youth, I knew love's sweet intoxication, as did we all, I think. And in Macbeth, that dread tale of ambition gone awry, dost thou think I never felt the hunger to climb, to grasp for something beyond my reach? Such feelings are the marrow of life, and to write of them is but to reflect the common soul of mankind. But I would say this, though much of what I penned doth stem from personal feeling or observation, there is also in the act of creation something divine, something that cometh from beyond. The Muses, as we did call them in my time, often lead me to truths that I might not have known, to depths of emotion that transcended my own understanding. Thus, when the quill did flow across the page, 'twas oft the case that my hand was but a humble servant to forces greater than myself.
What inspired you to pursue a career in the theater? And how did your upbringing in Stratford-upon-Avon influence your early development as a writer?
The theater, I think, called to me from the start, though I knew it not at first. Growing up in Stratford-upon-Avon, My world was one of simple means, yet full of stories. My father, a glover by trade, and my mother, from a family of some repute, filled our home with tales of old, and the town itself, with its festivals and fairs, had a lively sense of performance. Though my early years were spent in modest surroundings, I was surrounded by the rhythms of everyday life, the laughter, the disputes, the celebrations, all of which stirred my young imagination. My true pursuit of the theater began when I moved to London. The vibrant, dynamic world of the stage there sparked something within me. The public's hunger for stories, the energy of the actors, and the communal experience of performance felt like the perfect way to channel the thoughts and emotions that had long been simmering within me. Stratford may have shaped my sensibility, but London's theater gave me the canvas upon which to paint.
There is much mystery surrounding your education. How did your schooling, or lack thereof, impact your ability to write such rich and diverse works?
The question of my schooling is indeed a matter much speculated upon. In truth, I did receive a good education at the grammar school in Stratford, where I learned the classics, Latin, rhetoric, and a fair measure of history. We studied the works of Ovid, Virgil, and Seneca, whose tales of love, tragedy, and human folly did make a lasting impression upon me. This formal learning gave me a foundation, particularly in language and structure, but it was not the sole source of my creative fire. More than any schooling, it was life itself that taught me to write. My keen observation of people, their mannerisms, their joys, and their sorrows, coupled with the endless variety of human experience, enriched my imagination. Books may give knowledge, but the heart of storytelling lies in understanding human nature. In this, I am but a student of life, and that, I think, is why my works speak to so many across time.
Some scholars believe your works reflect an intimate knowledge of aristocratic life. How did you acquire this understanding, given your relatively modest origins?
Ah, a most intriguing question. 'Tis true I was not born into nobility, yet the world of the aristocracy was never far from view, even for one of modest origins. As a playwright in London, I often found myself in the company of those of high rank, both through my patrons and the courtly circles that frequented the theaters. I observed the manners, ambitions, and intrigues of the noble class closely, and my association with figures like the Earl of Southampton provided further insight into their lives and the complexities of power, love, and status. But more than this, I believe it is the nature of storytelling to bridge all divides. Whether one is born in a cottage or a castle, the fundamental emotions of humanity, ambition, jealousy, love, fear, remain the same. My plays reflect not only what I observed in the aristocracy, but also what I imagined, drawn from the common threads of human nature that transcend class. Thus, while I may have had glimpses into the noble life, it was empathy and imagination that allowed me to write with understanding of both kings and commoners alike.
Let's now turn our attention to the heart of your legacy, your literary work. Your plays and poetry have explored the full spectrum of human emotions and experiences, captivating audiences for centuries. From the lightheartedness of A Midsummer Night's Dream to the deep tragedy of King Lear, your range is truly unparalleled. What inspired you to delve into such diverse themes, and how did you approach capturing the complexities of human nature in your writing?
In truth, I was ever fascinated by the contradictions within us all. Life is not merely light or shadow, joy or sorrow. 'Tis a tapestry woven from both the mirth of a midsummer's night and the despair of a king's downfall. I sought to explore these extremes because, in my eyes, they are inseparable. One cannot truly understand love without knowing loss, nor ambition without encountering ruin. It is the tension between these forces that reveals the true essence of human nature. In my approach, I endeavored to listen closely to the hearts of men and women, to observe the way people spoke, acted, and reacted, whether in moments of joy or deep tragedy. I wrote characters not as mere archetypes, but as living beings, full of contradictions, flaws, and virtues alike. I wanted my audiences to see themselves reflected in my words, to feel that the joys, ambitions, and griefs of my characters were their own. Thus, by capturing the complexities of human nature, I hope to hold up a mirror to the soul, showing that we are all part of the same grand, ever-changing drama.
What do you consider to be the key to crafting effective dialogue, especially when balancing both poetic language and natural speech?
The key to crafting effective dialogue lies, I believe, in finding harmony between truth and beauty. On the one hand, dialogue must feel natural, as though it springs from the character's own heart and mind, reflecting their circumstances, desires, and emotions. It must capture the rhythm of human speech, be it the heated exchange of lovers or the careful plotting of a villain. On the other hand, there is the poetic element, the need to elevate language so that it resonates on a deeper level, stirring the audience's soul with the weight and beauty of the words. In balancing these, one must be mindful not to let the poetry overwhelm the truth of the moment. To achieve this, I often relied on blank verse, particularly iambic pentameter, which has a natural flow akin to spoken English, but allows for poetic expression. When a moment called for simplicity, I would write plainly, but when the passions of a character swelled, the language could rise with them, becoming more lyrical. The balance, then, comes from knowing when to let speech be simple and when to let it soar, always in service of the character's truth. In this way, dialogue becomes not just words exchanged, but a reflection of the character's inner world and the emotions that drive them.
How did your experiences in Elizabethan England influence the political themes present in your histories, such as Henry Fourth or Richard III?
Ah, the times in which I lived, they surely left their mark upon my writing, particularly in the histories. Elizabethan England was a land of political intrigue, shifting power, and constant uncertainty. The monarch's position, though strong, was not unshakable, and questions of succession, legitimacy, and the rightful use of power were always simmering beneath the surface. The tensions between loyalty and ambition, order and chaos, were as real in the court of Queen Elizabeth as they were on the battlefields of England's past. These dynamics I sought to explore in my histories, using the past to reflect the present. In Henry Fourth, for instance, the king's struggle to prove himself a worthy ruler mirrors the anxieties of leadership in a time when England itself faced internal and external challenges. Richard III delves into the darker side of political ambition, reflecting the ruthlessness and moral compromise often seen in the corridors of power. My aim was not only to entertain, but also to provoke thought on the nature of authority and the price of power. In these plays, I drew on the lessons of history to speak to the very real concerns of my own time, weaving the political realities of Elizabethan England into the stories of kings and wars long past.
Given your success as a playwright and poet, how did you navigate the social and political climate of Elizabethan England, particularly in relation to censorship and the monarchy?
Navigating the social and political climate of Elizabethan England required a careful balance of boldness and discretion. The monarchy, particularly under Queen Elizabeth, was a powerful presence, and the threat of censorship, or worse, loomed over all forms of public expression. The government kept a close watch on the theaters, wary of any work that might stir dissent or question the authority of the crown. To avoid running afoul of the law, I learned to tread lightly when addressing political matters, often couching my commentary in historical or foreign settings, as in my histories or Julius Caesar. This allowed me to explore sensitive themes, such as the use and abuse of power, without directly challenging the present rulers. At times, the art of subtlety became my greatest ally. In plays like Macbeth or Hamlet, I could engage with themes of tyranny, legitimacy, and the consequences of ambition, but in ways that felt distant enough not to incite immediate concern. Moreover, securing the patronage of influential figures, such as the Earl of Southampton, provided protection and positioned me favorably within courtly circles. While I was mindful not to provoke the wrath of the authorities, I sought to reflect the concerns of the time, trusting that the discerning audience would read between the lines, finding in my plays reflections of the world they lived in.
In The Tempest, you explore the theme of forgiveness. What message were you hoping to convey through Prospero's journey and eventual reconciliation?
In The Tempest, The theme of forgiveness lies at the very heart of Prospero's journey. Through him, I sought to explore the profound and difficult nature of letting go, not just of power, but of anger, betrayal, and the desire for revenge. At the beginning of the play, Prospero is consumed by his sense of injustice and uses his magical power to control and manipulate those around him. Yet, as the story unfolds, he comes to realize that true strength lies not in domination, but in the ability to forgive. His decision to renounce his magic and reconcile with those who wronged him, particularly his brother Antonio, marks his growth as a character and a release from the chains of bitterness. The message I hoped was one of redemption through forgiveness. We all, in life, suffer wrongs, and the desire for vengeance is a powerful force. But holding on to that anger only imprisons the soul. Through Prospero, I wish to show that mercy, forgiveness, and reconciliation, even in the face of great betrayal, are the keys to inner peace and freedom. In the end, Prospero's choice to forgive is not just a personal victory, but a reflection of the human capacity to rise above our baser instincts and find peace through compassion and understanding.
As we come to the close of this fascinating conversation, I'd like to touch on a topic that has sparked much debate in modern times: the question of your historical identity. There are scholars and enthusiasts today who speculate that you may not have been the sole author of the works attributed to you, or that you might have written under a pseudonym. What would you say to those who question your authorship and the true origin of your literary legacy?
Ah, the ever-persistent question of my identity and authorship. 'Tis a curious matter indeed, and one that has found life long after I laid down my quill. To those who question whether I was the true author of my works, or who suspect that I hid behind a pseudonym or shared my pen, I would say this: the words and stories speak for themselves. I am but a man of Stratford, raised modestly and taught in the common school, yet filled with a love for language, theater, and the human heart. My plays are born of that passion, crafted through observation, experience, and the muses that guided my hand. The speculation, though flattering in its own way, underestimates the power of imagination and hard work. While some may find it hard to believe that a man of my background could have created such a body of work, I assure thee that I wrote with my own hand, guided by the world around me and the common humanity we all share. The legacy of these stories belongs not to mystery, but to the love of storytelling itself. In the end, I care not for debates of names and titles. The plays live on, and that is what matters most. Let the words stand as my testament.